Seeking the Wise.
With Aaron and Alexander discussing the Just philosophy.
Covering self-development, emotional processing, conscious relationships, and 5 levels of overall wellness.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wise podcast. Really appreciate you being here with us, working on yourselves, learning how to incorporate self-development and self-growth tools and techniques of the Just philosophy. Here with me is Alexander.
So good to be with you people and be with you, Aaron, today. So looking forward to getting into our latest subject.
Yes, we've covered a vast amount of subjects, but we had a listener just this morning send an inquiry into me about how to kind of lighten the load of our kind of daily grind, maybe get into like the daily maintenance as we're doing these self-development techniques. We can often find ourselves, self-critiquing or maybe being a little too hard on ourselves, or maybe even getting caught up in the very overall, be positive type of mindset. And like, where is the balance there? Where is, how to be real while doing the self-development? Because we don't want to fool ourselves anywhere. And it seems like it can be so easy to do that. And of course, fooling ourselves can be on either or of the spectrum. It can be, being too positive or even being too negative. And of course, we want our vibe to shine bright. We want to be on that frequency of, I guess what we would say is kind of neutrality, contentment. We're not really talking about like joy, because that is also an emotional reaction. But what do you want to enter or have as an intro, Alexander, into this subject?
Well, I really want this subject to piggyback off of a recent release that's connected to integrity and confidence, and how we beat ourselves up or judge ourselves is many times connected to that confidence realm. And integrity handles things a little bit more like you're going to fail even in integrity, but you make the necessary steps that you need to succeed at it the next time. And so, see, failure is part of growing, and we can't succeed all the time or we wouldn't be growing. So this is very important to stay away from the would-haves, the could-haves, the should-haves. But it's very important that I like to say with the Just philosophy, I learned to just say no mas, and it stops here. And moving forward, this is what I'm going to implement so I don't fail in this manner again. So again, there's nothing wrong with failure. Failure from the viewpoint of the Just philosophy is just an opportunity to grow. But it's what you do after that failure is so important. And unfortunately, many times people won't make the necessary adjustments. They will just beat themselves up or judge themselves over and over on a daily basis at a failure at something.
Well, yeah, I think part of that is that when you get into this self-development work, whatever stage you're at, but when you get introduced into it, there's a desire to be better. You're yearning for something. You're hoping that you can do it, and you feel like the information that brought it to your awareness is better than sliced bread. It's
Sure.
it's like all of a sudden you have like this new perspective on life. You've been living in the dark ages your whole life, and now you're focused on this new way. So it can be sort of like an emotional high. And I bring that up because a lot of us can carry this through our daily practice as we're going about our day and we're interacting with people, and we're different energies, and we have highs and lows. When we allow ourselves to go through those highs and lows, like of course we want to allow those to come through and just flow through, but when we're allowing ourselves to get emotional through those, I feel like that is kind of what this listener is kind of looking to learn how to quell those, because we talk a lot about getting into contentment, or like you said, integrity. Integrity is not emotional. We're not being led, we're not hoping we have integrity. It's a knowing, it's a neutral thing. So it's like when we talk about standing in our power, integrity is kind of the vision I get with
Mhm.
integrity is standing in your power. Like you're a statue, you're firm in what you are. And or I mean, a lot of times we talk about a tree. So I like to bring in the tree because a statue is kind of too stiff. But a
Sure.
tree, when things happen throughout the day, it bends and moves, but it never breaks. So it really is about learning to recognize and process your emotions throughout the day, right? Or is that a big part of it?
Yes. In order to be emotionally balanced, we have to practice release if we allow activation. So, see, if you go into judgment and you go into frustration and maybe even anger at yourself, that has to be processed and released once it's created. So, that could be going for a swim and going underwater and just screaming or screaming into a pillow. I like to, especially where anger is involved, to suggest some kind of physical workout. So the plank is something that's very simple to do to just go through that strain and release the aggravation. And see, anger many times can feed people physically to be stronger in working out. So that's a great place to take that anger, is do a workout or some push-ups or some sit-ups or some plank or something like that, or running. And be realistic that if you activate that frustration that's connected to anger, then go ahead and accept that you need to go do something to get that out. And that the integrity is around, not through like every step of the process has to be perfect, but it's that when you stub your toes, so to say, that you sit down and you rub it and you show it nurturing for it to go through the process of throbbing to finally get painless again. And that's the way this emotional processing is that once that judgment is created, we need to go through all of the 5 levels. Once again, the physical, the mental, the emotional, the energetic, and the spiritual, to release those at all those levels. Or what happens is people try to cover it up and it comes back in another situation. So you could be frustrated at an email not going out, and then an hour later you're talking to a friend and they frustrate you because they're not agreeing with you in some perspective that you have. And then you go visit your parents and you get frustrated at maybe they're not moving as fast as you would like for them to go. So see, that's why it's important to go through the process. So if you do get frustrated, do get angry or sad, allow that to be there and move through it. But you're moving through it like you would be guiding a 7 or 8 year old child. And we go to this a lot because how we would work with a child is the direct example of how we should work with ourselves. And it's talking to how we would optimally talk to that child. We want to be compassionate. We normally don't want them to beat themselves up too much. And we say, hey, listen, it's okay. You failed at this, but next time, here's what you ask. What are you going to do different next time to get a different result? Okay. And then hopefully they can give an answer to that. And then you say, are you going to wait for that to be created in your life? Or are you going to go put yourself in a situation to practice this? Because again, the more you practice, we're habitual creatures. The more we practice, the faster we get better at something. So that's the point of being able to have, like, even people around that push your buttons to frustrate you. See, this is a way to utilize them to practice this processing intentionally and not taking it out on them. So the call here is to ask people to really get in your integrity, get your steps very clear in how to process these emotions. And we have many podcasts that go through the different steps. And of course, to get my mind right, typically with this process, is utilizing the 5 pillars, which we've talked about on plenty of episodes, and we'll probably expand on in the full conversation as well.
Yeah, and a trap that we can fall into when we start doing this is like what you just said, where we talk about the emotions kind of taking us away from contentment, from that neutrality, we can then in our minds think that, oh, well, emotions are bad and I need to not have them. And that is not what we're saying. This has been misunderstood throughout our podcast and other people talking about the same thing. Um, I want you to talk a little bit about that, but we'll get more into the process and more information around that in the complete conversation, because there's a lot more that I want to get into in this free part.
Yes, and and this is a big highlight of this part of this episode, because it is very important that we understand that we are emotional creatures. Therefore, we were designed to have emotions, but we were designed to process the emotions. So there's no judgment on having emotions from the Just Philosophy standpoint. The whole purpose is how you process them and move back into balance. That is the key, to be able to tell somebody, hey, I just got frustrated at this situation, and they didn't even notice it. See, that's the first step, is that you stop reacting. But that don't mean that you're home yet, because a lot of people stop reacting, but then they're holding stuff in. So part of that processing is you've got to be able to let it go and truly allow yourself to come back to center. And again, with different emotions, you approach it different ways. But the five pillars were directly created to help that mindset shift, because the mind is where the emotion is created. That's where the judge sits. And so, see, we want to accept that as soon as we feel our body get off, like many times with anger or frustration, the heart rate will come up. So, see, we want to train ourselves where that's the alarm. And you notice that the heart rate's up, and you might pause and go, okay, I'm really frustrated that this isn't going my way. See, frustration from the Just Philosophy standpoint is just pushing time, trying to make things happen, trying to get somebody to understand something when it's not time for them to understand that yet. It doesn't mean that what you have isn't useful, but timing is such a very important part of this process. And most people don't give themselves enough time, or they don't give others enough time for all of this processing to happen. So, guilt and shame and berating ourselves and beating ourselves down, judging ourselves, does not help any more than judging other people does. But to assess and see what, once again, needs to be changed. And then these are the things I'm going to put and implement through discipline and structure to make sure that I don't fall into that trap again. And we've got plenty of tools. We will be expanding in the full conversation, just step by step, how to go through these processes.
What are the downfalls to our self development when we do focus more on just the positive or just the negative? I feel like for me, I find myself falling in the negative because I am a generator in the human design system, and we clearly know what we don't like more clearly than what we do. And I've used it to my benefit in my work, being
Hmm.
able to critique designs and code and stuff like that. But for in life or in my self development, it's probably not as useful.
Yes, and that's beautiful to see, because, again, the philosophy's approach is a neutral or balanced or equilibrium way of being, to where you're oscillating in between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. Again, talking about energy, not genders, because all of us as human beings have feminine and masculine qualities. So there are some people that come into life just more optimistic, and some people that come into life more pessimistic. And that can be understood through your design, your human design. Like you were just saying, you're a generator, I'm a generator. And generators are here to show what isn't working and why it's not working. So we don't mean it. Normally, we're not thinking it as negatively as it can sound to someone else. But then there's people on the other side, that the manifestors and manifesting generators, many times, that can be overly positive and Pollyanna, if you will. And there's even techniques out there that teach people to just say positive things, and it has different results for different people. But when you realize that if you resonate with the middle way, or the balanced way, or the way of equilibrium, to see that, again, however low you go with negative emotions, or however high you go with positive emotions, you got to go that low with the low side. So learning to be in contentment is much more along that middle line. And so with yourself or any other generators out there, my suggestion is that to set a timer 3 or 4 times a day on your phone or watch or clock or whatever. And that timer is to let you know to actively find some beauty, actively find something that you weren't recognizing in your environment, to appreciate, to love. And see, you have the natural way of looking for the problems, and this is the way to balance it out, is that you use intention and action to balance that out, because it's not something that's necessarily naturally going to happen. And for many people that are very positive and they can have their world crushed by someone being negative to them, see, every now and then for them to consider just looking or talking to somebody or finding some type of news of some current events that's going on, that's challenging, to bring that real everyday life back into the world. And again, just because you are recognizing something that exists doesn't mean you have to get completely involved in it emotionally. And that would probably be good for the optimistic, to just get very little, maybe 5 minutes or less of the information, and then just go through a time of compassion and prayer, whatever that would be to each individual, and send that person, place, or situation, some of those good vibes that the optimist has. So again, most people know themselves well enough. And if you don't, ask some of your closest people around you if they see you as more of an optimist or more of a pessimist. And then actively, whatever you do the majority of the time, then actively and with intention, balance that out with the opposite.
Yeah, I thought this would also be a good episode to bring in words, because when we're focusing on the positive or negative energy in our lives, we're going to then utilize that same energy through the words that we use to other people. And when we start doing this work, we become more aware of how our energy affects everybody
Mm,
else around us. So
sure.
then if we're always focused on being frustrated in certain situations, that's going to transcend us into and around us, of the people who are there. And our words can probably be shorter, or can be judged as being more critical of other people, and rightly so, they probably are. So we can get more into words in the complete conversation, but I wanted you to kind of touch upon it a little bit.
Yeah, well, there's a wonderful saying, not many general sayings do I really resonate with deeply, but I do this one of, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. And the energy behind the words is always more important than the words that are chosen. And this is where people can be very manipulative with words, but not that many people can be as manipulative with their energy. And this is one of the purposes of learning to be sensitive to your subtle energy, is that if you can learn to be sensitive to yours, you can be sensitive to others, and you can discern when people are being truthful and not. And so again, a practice in intentional speaking, being, as optimal with your words and word selection to express yourself. See, many times people will use curse words and phrases that they've been around their whole life when they don't know how to express themselves. So again, being in an environment where somebody uses a lot of curse words, that's a compassionate thought that, oh, they're not able to enunciate what they're really feeling. And so they default to these easy words that so many people use. So, maybe that can help with some of the compassion. But for yourself, if you're having trouble expressing yourself to somebody, then work to express yourself by yourself, to maybe write it down how you feel about something, and then practice saying it out loud by yourself first. And then maybe with a friend or somebody that you really respect, maybe say it and read it to them. And this is the practice with learning to stand in our truth without having to forcefully or poorly deliver it. And enough people, I don't feel like, truly practices speaking their mind to the divine, to the mother nature, to mother earth, to just getting it out and seeing it from a vibrational standpoint. So see, that's what comes across is somebody can use a so-called positive word, but they have a negative connection to it, and that can be felt many, many times. So being authentic and standing in your power, speaking your truth, but not being forceful or not being disabled to really speak your mind is one of the main focuses of the communication part of the Just Philosophy.
And we talked a little bit about how we were energetically created when we come into this. We talked about like having masculine and feminine attributes and being a generator in the human design or other types. I did want to bring up that just because we're made that way, the reason why we do self-development work is to recognize where we are, but also understand and have an intention of where we want to be. And so because we know where we're starting, we know how to change this, and it's through the practice. And that's why we offer these tools and techniques of the Just Philosophy, is to help guide you in those directions toward your intention on how to grow yourself away from or in alignment with who you are, but also to round your edges. So there are things like, for me, I'm good at pointing out at critiquing things, but I'm not great at maybe nurturing. So like you said, being mindful, if I have the intention to want to learn that, then I can set up a structure to, like you said, set up an alarm on my phone 4 times a day. If that's what's going to get my attention, of course I could set it up to be like, every hour on the even hour. But if I'm not going to hold myself accountable, then using a device is also going to help with that. So we have technology, we can definitely use it to our advantage. But I just wanted to point that out, that this is why we do this. We don't subscribe to, oh, this is how I am, and everybody just needs to accept me that way. We're looking to grow ourselves in the direction to be an overall balanced human on this planet.
Yes, and I wanted to give a quick example with what you just said. That if you set your timer in the example that you just gave, that critiquing's easier than nurturing, then when that alarm goes off, say 3 or 4 times a day, you find something and someone to compliment, and that helps you work on the nurturing side. And it also makes it to where every time you talk to that person, it's not just a critique that's happening. So again, whatever we're weak in, both the human design and the destiny card system helps us to truly break that down and to see, what's family lineage, what have you brought in with you, and what's your divine makeup, and what is a good idea for you to let go. So these are great tools to help us to expand our tool belt. And, they are a big part of, what the Just Philosophy is springboards off of. That's just to help people to understand themselves. And then the Just Philosophy is the tools of how to get there to that more higher self.
And we hope that you'll join us on the complete side. In that complete conversation, we will get into how to balance frustration with action, how to communicate with ourselves so that we're not being so hard or maybe too forgiving. And maybe we'll get into some mantras. These are just notes that I've written down of stuff I want to get into. Would definitely touch upon more on the words and how the effects they have on ourselves and our closest relationships, and more. I have many more notes, Alexander, to get into. So really appreciate you guys. If this is the first time that you've checked us out, we're new to video podcasting, so you may be watching us on YouTube. If you are, please subscribe and like this video, and check out all of our other 100 and something episodes of this content. Really appreciate you guys.
See you on the other side.
Thank you for listening to this free version of the Wise podcast. To hear the complete conversation and go deeper into the application of the tools and techniques of the Just Philosophy, head on over to wisewisepodcast.com and become a premium member. You'll get to hear all of our complete conversations, including the complete episodes of our Inward Journey story series and our entire back catalog, and continue your self-development journey with us. We honor your dedication to self-growth, overall wellness, and continuing to ask the wise whys.
And remember, gradual changes over long periods of time equals lasting results.
Continue on your self-growth journey by visiting thejustphilosophy.com, where you are able to connect personally by booking a private consultation with Alexander in person, by phone, or Zoom. Uncover your authentic self more easily with a human design or destiny card consultation. Here you will gain information about your energetic makeup, personality, and your higher self, as well as navigating your way through your relationships. There are also multiple types of reports available for purchase that help you gain insight into your career, relationships, and opportunities for self-growth. The site also allows you to view a calendar of Alexander's live performances and class schedule, peruse other products such as shirts, CDs, and finally, the revolutionary VibroTune vibrational sound therapy tables. These contoured therapy tables allow you to bathe in a vibrational sonic bath of frequencies, bringing you into alignment on all levels. You will be feeling and hearing calming music synced through vibration and frequency. So again, you can grab all this goodness at thejustphilosophy.com, thejustphilosophy.com. The Just Philosophy, as discussed in this podcast, has been developed by Alexander over the last 25 years in his personal studies, private practice, and professional environment. The information discussed is intended for educational purposes only and is not meant as a replacement for conventional medicine. Just remember, knowledge plus experience equals wisdom. Seek the wise. We want to thank you for working on you. Keep shining your light and refining your vibe.